It's December. It's not far off Christmas, and you're listening to Daftaboutcraft edition number 6. With me, Dave D.
And me, Dave B.
And a lot of Christmas bells as well. Let's just fade those off into the distance. Well, welcome to episode 6, and we've got loads and loads going on this episode as usual, even more than usual, as we count down to Christmas. And lots going on in the wider world as well, at the end of lockdown 2.0. It's been a busy few weeks, Dave.
Well, it's been a busy few weeks, unless, unfortunately, probably in the hospitality industry. As you say, we're just not quite out of lockdown 2.0 at the time of recording. However, new tier system has been revealed, and it doesn't look like very good news for the vast majority of bottle shops and craft beer bars and the sort of industry as a whole, really.
Yeah, a lot of places, even if they find themselves not in tier 3 and in tier 2 maybe, they're still, I think, not going to bother opening because they've got to be selling food to open, and that's not their main thing, is it? A lot of the craft places. No,
the substantial meal doesn't really apply to the craft guys and girls, unfortunately. I know obviously quite a few places will have things like wood-fired pizza ovens, and perhaps that is something they can look at doing, that kind of food, which is obviously what they were sort of doing originally. Hopefully that constitutes being substantial enough, but I guess it also needs to be enough of a money spinner in the sense that you can do it and actually turn a profit from opening that rather than just staying closed.
Exactly. I did like the picture I saw on Facebook, though. One pub had mocked up a beer called a Substantial Food. Did you see that one?
I've seen that one. Elusive have done Tears of a Clown as well, with a picture of our beloved Prime Minister on the front, which I thought was pretty excellent as well.
So what have we got coming up on this episode then? Well, we've got Brew to Me in a few minutes' time, where we sample a beer from a brewery we haven't tried before. We've got Rob from This Week in Craft Beer joining us for a chat, and that'll be interesting. Tell you about what he does, and we'll have a beer together. What else have we got, Dave?
So we're doing Blind Leading the Blind. So we have a couple of beers, and we're going to blind taste them to see which of the two we prefer.
So even if this usually does sound like the blind leading the blind, this actually will be the blind leading the blind this time. We've got Omnipollo from Sweden, the Swedish giants of craft, joining us, which we're really looking forward to. They'll be popping in, having a chat with us, tell us what they're up to, and we're really, really chuffed to get them on the podcast. A real coup for us.
Yeah, I was delighted to get that one. It's usually the most stressful part of the month, trying to line up people, but that one actually fell into place rather smoothly, so it was a delight. And as Dave says, we're thrilled to have them on. Obviously, a lot of people know all the madcap stuff they do. I know there's an eggnog. The eggnog, yes. As he goes knocking around now, which sort of sums them up, really. So, delighted, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it too. Yeah, and we've got hopefully some good Christmas gift ideas. There's no end of beer or beer-related merch or paraphernalia that you can get your hands on for yourself or your loved ones.
And we've also got Hype Or Tripe, that section of the podcast where we have a look at one of the beers that's been getting rave reviews over the last few weeks. We give it a try and tell you what we think. So that's what's coming up on episode number 6 of Daftaboutcraft, the craft beer podcast. Hope you enjoy it.
Beer I have chosen for Brew to Me this month is in tier 1, so people could freely go get this and probably go and taste it on tap at the brewery itself, which is Padstow Brewing Co. down in Cornwall. They seem to have some sort of traditional roots and have moved into craft, but they're fiercely small scale microbrewery, and this is The Smoke, a smoked oatmeal stout at 5.5%. Now, I don't often go for stouts over light, but as I think I said last month, I'm trying to do different stuff. So I like smoked beers. I do like a good Rausch beer. So this was sort of my thinking towards it. And it definitely smells smoky. It's beach smoke and it's nice. I like that. I like that smell a lot. How do you find smoked beers?
I think if they're 5 or 6%, I'd prefer them to be kind of double that sort of strength, because they're not going to have a great deal of body to carry it off, are they, at the lower ABV?
I know what you mean. And the first hit of that, you're right to a degree. I wouldn't mind it just being a bit punchier on the back end and just holding up that bit more weight. It doesn't need lactose or anything. It probably just needs a slightly heavier hit of malt just to firm it up. But the smokiness really stays the course.
I've got to say, the head looks a lovely colour.
It quickly went to nothing, but it's a lovely.
It's sort of clinging to the glass a bit, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lovely deep brown as well, as you'd hope. And
I think you quite like that by the looks of it.
I quite like this. If I was in a pub somewhere and it was, say I was in, I know they've got they have got their own tap sort of tasting room down on the coast or something. If I don't know where it is exactly in Padstow, but if it had a nice little view of the harbour or the sea and whatnot, and it was rough out there and it's nice and warm inside, this would go down a treat. Yes, it won the Civet British Dark Beers 2019 National Gold Award, so it is an award-winning beer.
Because it's not too strong, you could have, quite easily have a couple of those, couldn't you?
Absolutely. I suspect there's probably a bit more to it on a key keg that might just maybe help give it that bit more life and that bit more body. I just really like the idea of a smoked beer coming not from Germany, because I think when you think of that sort of style, it is that Rausch beer. I like the Schlenker a lot. It's not to everyone's taste. It is, you could argue, you're drinking sort of bacon in a can, but I really like the smell of it, but it's not to everyone's taste. But to see a British brewery trying something like this and it succeeding is really nice.
So Dave's Padstow Brewery beer there going down very well. Hopefully mine will do the same. I've got a can here from the Tenby Brewing Company from Wales. Got to say, I've never heard of them at all. They're a new one on me. Have they come on your radar at all, Dave? No,
that'd be a new one for me as well. There does seem to be a sort of rash of small breweries coming through at the moment.
I think they popped up on one of the sponsored Facebook ads, and they're advertising this beer that I've got here, which is the barrel-aged Bonfire S'mores Imperial Stout at 9.5%. So what a way for me to start the episode, straight in with a big one.
Going big and going home in all in one hit, possibly.
Now, this is being brewed in conjunction with Chapter Brewing in Runcorn. So
it'll also be a new one on me. I don't know about you.
I think Chapter. I've heard of them, but I've not had anything from them.
Okay.
Now, this is in a 330ml can, black can with sort of a copper-coloured logo and writing on it, which looks pretty good.
So is it s'mores they're going for, which is a bit of an American campfire treat, isn't it? We're in sort of marshmallow-y...
It's a marshmallow-y type thing, isn't it?
Mm.
I had a barrel-aged s'mores one from Lervig not a while ago, and that was excellent. Trouble is, when you've had something from Lervig,
you've set the bar very high.
The bar is really high, isn't it?
Well, the head dissipated to nothing in an instant there. I mean, it's as black as pitch as you'd expect.
It wasn't massively thick when it poured out. I mean,
It doesn't look that thick in your glass.
I can't quite see through the whole of the liquid in the glass, but I can sort of see through some of it. Let's give it the taste test.
You look a bit confused by it, if anything.
Now, according to the can, I'll read you the description. It says, this big decadent stout is packed full of chocolate, roasted marshmallow and biscuit flavours. It's super smooth and moreish, with a satisfyingly complex malt bill and notes of peat and oak. Do get that. That's the barrel aging there. I wonder how long it's spent in a barrel, whether it was, a couple of weeks or a couple of years. I'm not sure. Well, saying that sort of oakiness is quite pleasant, and I probably wouldn't want much more of it, to be honest. It's probably just about right.
Are you getting some sort of sweet marshmallow as well, though? Or even toasted marshmallow, maybe?
There's a certain amount of sweetness to it. And actually, now I've just let it sit for a couple of minutes, that chocolate is starting to come through a little bit from the malt. That is there. It's quite subtle, though. It's not really in your face or anything. I've got to say, I was quite surprised when I poured it out. I mean, you could hear it pour into the glass out, and it wasn't sort of glugging out of the can, was it? It was...
it came out spritzy more than sort of treacle.
Yeah, but that's maybe a personal thing. That's probably, that's more what I like. This is not a bad beer in any way, shape or form. It's just probably not quite what I was expecting it to be. The barrel aging is there. That has got the right flavour. That's all there. But it's the sweetness that it lacks a little bit, and the the thickness and the complexity. It's sort of a little bit one note, that note being the barrels that it was aged in. £5.92 on their website for 1 can.
Fair. They got quite a range of other beers as well.
Yeah, I've got a few others as well. Of course, I couldn't just get the one out to get about half a dozen. I think I've got 2 of these as well, actually. And the glass, of course, the all-important glassware. And I'll certainly look forward to trying the others. And their slogan is "Brewed by the Beach," which certainly sounds enticing, doesn't it? And I see they've got a tap room as well. Might be one to look up. Yeah, it
sounds like we've sort of ended up in with similar types of breweries in terms of by the sea and whatnot, and both smoky as well somehow.
Yes, we both ended with smoky beers produced by the sea, and we should sort of tell people that when we pick these beers, we do it completely independently. And we don't really tell each other until a day or so before the podcast, do we? So,
well, no, you didn't know what I had until I opened the can.
I didn't actually. I didn't. No. I told you, but you kept yours a secret. Yeah. I think it's a fair effort, but I wouldn't rush to have this particular one again. But I would certainly want to try more of their stuff. So we've got something a little bit different this time on Daftaboutcraft. We are welcoming Rob from This Week in Craft Beer. Rob Cheshire, a very good day to you.
Hi, thanks very much for having me on, guys.
Not a problem. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell everybody what you're about and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Rob. I'm one of the co-founders of This Week in Craft Beer. We started in January 2020. It's myself and my cousin, sort of both massive craft beer fans. We started out really wanting to put a newsletter together that covered the industry the way we would like it to have been covered as we were getting into beer. We found it really difficult to find sort of any kind of coherent coverage of, who the significant breweries were, what beers were being released, what events were happening. None of that information. It all seemed terribly sort of hodgepodge and hard to come by. So we figured that we could actually do a reasonable job of researching and collating a lot of that information and presenting it in a way that people would appreciate reading in their email inbox on a Monday morning. So that was how This Week in Craft Beer started, and we've been publishing that newsletter. Now I think we're up to issue 40 or 41, something like that. We're starting to find our stride with that. Obviously, when we started out this year, this was pre-COVID, so we had grand plans about covering lots of festivals and tap takeovers, and really, I like nothing better than being out in a tap room drinking craft beer. So, we hope to have it much more about the out and about of craft beer than it's actually turned out to be. So, a lot of the time this year, I feel like we've just been sort of scrambling to find content for the newsletter that made up for the fact that we weren't allowed out anymore. So, we've got grand plans for next year to get back on the festival trail and the taproom trail and doing taproom reviews and covering the the whys and wherefores of what's going on in the UK craft beer scene. But I think we've started to build a decent circulation for the newsletter anyway. We get lots of good feedback.
I remember when I first saw the newsletter, I thought, wow, this is not something I've seen before. This is good information, all in one place. Who's released what in the last week? What's going on? And there's very few other avenues to find that information.
I think specifically with the beer releases, excuse me, that's targeted at least partly at the brewers and partly at the beer community, or the beer fans. So brewers like to know what people are releasing, and you can spend a lot of time thumbing through Instagram, which is obviously mainly what we do to collate the list in the first place.
Yep.
Or you can open our newsletter at 9:00 on a Monday morning, and by 9:10, you know what's what.
I was going to say, if you've been doing this now, we're approaching episode 40 of the email. You must have seen certainly how it feels that the scene's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger in terms of how many releases you're having to put out on that each week. Is it just sort of showing how vibrant things are?
Definitely. It's in rude health, I think, at least the top end of the market. I think it's easy for us to sort of get wrapped up in the hype brewers and the ones that are making loads of money and doing really well and lose sight of the fact that there's probably 1,000 or 1,500 brewers in the UK that are actually struggling this year. So I sort of try not to do that too much. But on the other hand, as far as the new beers release list is concerned, obviously we're trying to track the brewers that we think are the ones people really want to hear about. So we try to keep that at 100. when I say we, this is mostly my partner Steve that does this. He tracks the top 100 brewers. That, this is a very subjective perspective, of course, and I do know that he's now looking to maybe trim that a bit, because we were getting maybe 40 beers a week to list out of those top 100 brewers. The last few weeks has gone up to 60, 70. I think this week we had over 70 new beers. Yeah. So that's becoming quite a logistical challenge for him to actually track and list and, get all the logos and the tasting notes for that many beers. So I think we might trim it down from 100 to covering the top 90. I don't know, but it's...
And are you like us? Do you try and taste all these beers as well? So I know that I definitely
occasionally do have a look and think, well, so I need to order that one anyway, and I need to find that one. So I honestly, no, I don't sort of end up buying too many of them, but I probably buy more than I should.
Like us, you've got a podcast which every week you're capturing some of the brightest and best that are coming up in the scene. So how have you found that?
I'm absolutely loving it, Dave, to be honest with you. I'm having so much fun doing the podcast, from the making contact with the brewers to book the interviews, to doing the research, to actually doing the interviews and, and sharing the beers with the brewer. It's a massive privilege. And I feel like I need to pinch myself that I'm actually getting away with doing it most of the time. Some of the guys I've had on are, these are heroes of mine practically. And so, it's lots of fun. And I hope the enthusiasm that I have for it comes through in the finished product, because it's tons and tons of fun. I try to focus on brewers that I think are emerging. And to be honest with you, partly that is because I want to try and find people whose story isn't already told. It's fun for me to find the smaller guys, especially the ones that have really got some momentum behind them. So like Alpha Delta, for example, was a great one to have my first episode. That was
a good one.
By far the most downloaded episode to date, but I've had literally every single one of my guests has been really interesting, and I've had lots of fun chatting with all of them. I've got it booked out over 3 months in advance now. So I partly because I like to sort of have the surety of knowing who I'm going to be talking to, but also partly because these guys are so insanely busy that it's really hard to sort of phone somebody up or email them and say, can you do an interview with me next week? The answer is going to be no, because they're so maxed out at the moment. So I feel like if I can get them scheduled 2 or 3 months ahead of time, then with a couple of email reminders along the way and a few direct messages on Instagram, pretty much it always comes together. At least it has done so far.
The power of the direct message on Instagram is good, isn't it?
That sounds very familiar, yeah.
So how did you get into the cold craft scene? What pulled you in the first place?
Right, so I've been a huge cask beer fan for all my adult life, and you guys can see I've got a bit of a grey beard going on. So I've passed my best, let's say. So the fact is, I've been going to camera beer festivals for 20 years or so, and so that was one of my sort of biggest pleasures in life was going to beer festivals, drinking beer with my mates, and then about 5, 6 years ago, I was traveling very frequently to Scandinavia. I work, my day job is in the software industry, selling software, and I had a sales territory that was mainly Denmark and Sweden at the time. And so I was traveling backwards and forwards to Copenhagen and Stockholm and Gothenburg, and to a lesser extent, places like Oslo and Helsinki as well, all of which were probably a couple of years ahead of the UK in terms of the adoption of sort of US craft beer, if you want to call it that. And so I, suddenly started to, and it sort of didn't happen immediately, but I started to sort of think, well, actually, no, that's a really good beer, and that's a really good beer, and that's a really good beer. And, and before I knew it, I was in War Pigs and Mikkeller almost every night in Copenhagen and Stockholm. Fortunately, drinking on expenses, which is the best way to drink beer in Scandinavia. Yeah.
You got that well sorted.
Before I knew it, I was massively immersed in craft beer and drinking the sort of the ordinary cask bitters that I'd been drinking for so long just didn't excite me anymore. Once you've seen the light, it's hard to go back, isn't it?
It is. Once you've sampled what there is out there, you think, what's everybody else doing drinking this stuff? Because it's a different world, isn't it?
It really is, yeah.
Do you think the UK craft scene has still got expansion, or do you think we've reached some sort of saturation point, or can we keep going and going? What do you reckon?
Well, I mean, I don't think we can keep going and going, but I do think there is still some growth. And the reason I say that is mainly with reference to the percentage of beer being currently drunk in the UK, which is craft. So the US got to about 15% before COVID. So, of every beer drunk in the US, of every 1,000 beers drunk in the US, whatever you want to call it, 15% were or are now craft. Now that number has slipped back, I think maybe a couple of percentage points this year because a lot of people in the US have lost their jobs. But in the UK, it's more like 5% at the moment. So I'm quite sure that the amount of craft beer being drunk in the UK can double as a percentage of all beers. Given that, I think there is room for several hundred more breweries in the UK, and for the ones that are here to get bigger.
I feel like putting you on the spot slightly, but if you were to be predicting what you think might be happening in 2021, and obviously we have the backdrop of hopefully things getting back to normal, but what are you sort of hoping for craft beer in the UK in 2021?
I do know that there's been a lot of breweries that are, that have invested massively in their own facilities. Yeah, I think we're in great shape and we've got a massive few years ahead of us.
Well, one final thing I'd just like to say before we do take the light off is you're in a safe space, so please do plug the podcast and the email for the newsletter.
Definitely. Well, thanks very much for that. So we do a weekly podcast which is called simply This Week in Craft Beer. It's available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and most of the major podcast platforms. We distribute via Anchor, which automatically distributes to most of these guys. So it's fairly widely available. And that goes out every Tuesday morning at 4 a.m. because everybody knows that the movers and the shakers of this world get up at 4 a.m. So I'm trying to provide a service to these guys who are getting up and hitting the gym at 5 in the morning. They can rely on my new podcast being available for them to listen to.
To work off last.
That's both of them. Yeah. The newsletter goes out every Monday morning, roughly at 9 o'clock. It's sometimes a bit more like 9:15, but I'm trying to get Steve to be a bit more punctual with that. You can sign up for the newsletter at thisweekincraft.beer. Just put your email address in the little box on the homepage and you will be on the distribution list. And as soon as you get fed up with receiving it, you can unsubscribe and we will never hear from us again. And we obviously promise not to sell your email address or send you any spam.
You won't get fed up, I promise you. Rob from This Week in Craft Beer, thank you very, very much for joining us today. Cheers, mate.
Daftaboutcraft.
Right, well, in the interests of keeping it independent, we've done away with our supermarket sweep feature this month. We really want to promote independence in the build up to Christmas and to get you buying from your local breweries and bottle shops. So there's no supermarket sweep. We've got a brand new feature which hopefully we'll do again if it's a success, and it's called Blind Leading the Blind. Do you want to explain a bit about it?
Yeah, so in the spirit of supporting independence, there is a sort of baffling amount of beer out there now, and with that, you've only got perhaps so many styles and percentages and hop combinations that you can throw together. So how do you know if there's, say, 4 beers that are all 6% IPAs, which one is the best of that little lot if you can bring them all together? So with that in mind, we have picked 2 beers from Pomona Island up in Salford, and they've put out 2 6.5% double dry hopped IPAs, one called I Will Survive and the other called Kinkini Bamalam. So we thought, which one's the best one out of those 2? And let's taste them blind to find out.
So what we've both got in front of us is 2 glasses of fruit juice looking liquid. We know that the 2 beers are in the 2 glasses, but we don't know which is in which glass. So we're going to taste them, talk about them, try and work out which is which, and then decide who is the king of the Pomona DDH Pales. In an ideal world, hopefully one of us will prefer one of them and the other will prefer the other, and then it's a win-win situation for Pomona. They've got 2 great beers.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, first question I've got, one of mine has no head whatsoever, and it went pretty much straight away. The other one has got a head that is retained all the way through. Have you got the same situation?
They've both still got a bit of a head, to be honest.
Okay.
So this is interesting as well, obviously, because we've got cans of the same beers and they've travelled different distances. And I always wonder, does that affect beer? Are there that many variables in it when you actually crack open the can? And already maybe there is a slight difference because you've got one with a head, one without. I've got 2 with.
I smelt these a little while ago, as if these are sat here for a couple of minutes now, and one smelt really different at that point, and now
They're both pretty similar, aren't
they
they?
both smell pretty similar.
Yeah.
Definitely can get Citra out of both of them.
Well,
One smells a little bit more tropical than the other, I think.
we should say that we know what hops are in them. We have looked.
One of them starts quite sweet and Citra, and then it gets a bit floral. And I know one of them's got Eucano in it, and I think that might be the one with Eucano in it. But let's try the other one.
Oh, I think I've got the same one. Is it a bit sort of? Is it floral or bitter at the end?
Well, the other one's not massively dissimilar.
Well, I've had the one. I'll go for the other now.
I think there's subtle differences here, but they're not like massively obviously different.
Okay, well, the first one for me, the finish at the end was different to the finish of this one. They sort of start off the same but end differently. I think I prefer the second one. The second one seems to hold its flavour all the way through for me.
My first one's getting more and more floral. It's quite a full finish, but it's really floral, and I do associate Eucano as a hop with that sort of thing. So I'm thinking that is the one that's got Eucano in it. Second beer definitely doesn't have as bitter a finish.
Yeah, I think we're tasting these in the same order. For me, that the second one is my favourite one. It seems
Agreed.
It's got the same flavour throughout. It doesn't have the bitter finish.
They both start very similar, I would say. I think both kick off with Citra, or I think one of them has a cryo version of it. But they're both Citra to start, and then it's just what takes over on the back end. And I think I'm with you that one is noticeably different to the other.
And the first one, I think you said this, has got a more tropical vibe to it as well.
The second one is a better balanced beer for me.
Exactly. That is what I take out of it.
So I will say, because you've got the cans in front of you and mine are in the fridge because they were poured for me by my glamorous assistant, I will say the one with Eucano is the first one I tried.
Yeah, and I think it's the first one I tried as well, purely by chance. That's I Will Survive, which means the second one, if we are right, Kikini Bamalam.
Yeah, that is a nice beer. That's a really nice beer. I'd also say, for full disclosure, I think having two DDHs like this, it's quite gassy, isn't it? It's quite a gassy experience of blind tasting.
I'm sure that will come. So we've decided that we both prefer our second beer. We think our second beers are both the same. So should we get the reveal? Let's get your reveal and my reveal and see which is which. The way we're doing this reveal is through the medium of photograph. So our assistants photograph the beers and the cans. And we're going to have a look and see if we're right. This is very exciting, isn't it? Brilliant.
Good, isn't it? Right, so I think white glass, blue can. Yes!
Oh, I got it wrong.
Hey!
So we both like different beers.
But you like the same. You didn't like.
I think Beth's got these cans muddled up.
Poor workman always blames his tools.
So it appears that Dave B has got it absolutely spot on. He identified the beers, he got them right. It appears that I, however, completely got it wrong, and that if my adjudicator can be believed, I muddled up the beers completely. But what is indisputable is that on the table in front of us both is at least one good beer and possibly two good beers, one that I like and one that you like. So this is a victory for Pomona Island, really, Dave.
Daftaboutcraft.
Well, it looks like the first round of Blind Leading the Blind went to Dave B there. And yes, I hang my head in shame, but well done to Pomona as well for two fine beers there. Well, somebody else who really does know his stuff is Henuk, the head brewer of the Swedish giants Omnipollo, and we're absolutely thrilled to say he joins us now for an update on what's going on at the marvellous magical world of Omnipollo in Sweden.
Daftaboutcraft. Hey guys, thanks for having me on the show. This is Henok here from Omnipollo. We are very excited about a couple of things that are happening at the brewery over the next coming months. We are getting a new brew house, getting tanks, getting a canning line. I mean, basically the works. After about 10 years of brewing a bit here and there all across the world, we're finally getting our own brewery up and running in a church outside of Stockholm city center in a close suburb called Sundbyberg. and we're super excited about being able to finally call a place a home, having friends and brewers over there, and being able to invite guests and travelers too, from UK not the least. So super exciting stuff. Right now I'm drinking 2 different beers mostly that we have. We're kind of into contrast at the moment. I think that, as a laid back beverage, we've brewed a Mexican lager. The first time we've ever done that. Corn infused, Galena hops. There's another quite famous Mexican lager that has that hops as well, but it's a kind of cool sensation to be able to drink this beer, and it almost feels like it has lime in it. I don't drink it with lime personally, but it does have a very refreshing kind of limey aroma and tone to it. And in the evenings when I light the fire in our house, I drink a collaboration beer that we made with Bottle Logic, US brewery, and Moxa, another US brewery, about 1.5 years ago, that we put into Willet rye whiskey barrels. It's a thick imperial stout, 14 ABV, that we've infused with coconut basically all the way through. So in the boil, in lagering, in the barrel, and post barrel, which was kind of the idea. I think Derek from Moxa is pretty much a coconut freak, so he suggested we'd go all the way with the coconut concept. And I think it like you can definitely feel the barrel coming through. It cuts through that big bold sweetness that this beer would otherwise almost be overpoweringly sweet if we didn't have that. But also, again, to round it out, that coconut really does a good job. So Carême comes in a screen printed bottle that we've put, amongst other things, into a Christmas box that we released a couple of weeks ago. So whoever ordered that, congratulations. I think that beer turned out really well. Right now I'm drinking beers from a bunch of different breweries. I finally have a bit more time to stay home and kind of savor the fact that you can order beers online. And I actually ordered a couple of different beers from Verdant a couple of weeks ago. Had a bunch of incredibly well-made pale ales that I really enjoyed. I also ordered a couple of beers from the US shipment that I believe came in via Drickeriget from Trillium. The beer it was most memorable from that box that I got was Stilling Street, I think, was an IPA that they brewed with hand-selected Nelson Savan hops. And I think they really kind of popped and had this interesting twist to it. IPAs are popular, as we all know. We like to brew even stronger beers than that, double IPAs and so on and so forth. And I think that, just getting an IPA that's right in the middle of that pale ale experience that Verdant in this case provided for me, and that double IPA experience that we really enjoy, where there's a punch of flavor, that can really create this sensation of like drinkability and enjoyment and excitement at the same time. I think IPA is one of the few beer styles that really manages to strike that balance in a really, really cool way. So yeah, thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
So there are the Christmas bells. So it's time to have a look at our Christmas guides, what you can get your craft beer loving friends and family, our little guide to Christmas.
And there's no shortage of options this year. I think everyone's going all out to try and get their share of the market, and why not? It's been a tough year for everyone, and I think there's more than enough to go around for all. So our friends at Real Ale, who were on last month, they've got a 12 beers of Christmas deal for $39.95, which is not bad value at all. And our friends at Hall Beer, they have something they call the monthly haul, and you get to curate your own bespoke box of beers and indeed ciders as well if you wish. And you get to set the amount you want to spend on it yourself. And you can get more details on that at their website, which is hall-beer.com.
Now, if you're a big fan of a specific brewery, there's plenty of different craft producers out there who are doing their own monthly boxes. So if you want to buy your partner, say, a whole year's worth of beers, and you can pay a different amount each month and have a nice box turn up for them. If you go to Turning Point, you can get their beers each month for £20. I think that's 6 beers each month for £20, and that includes every new release. Brew by Numbers do a monthly box for £35, and Brew York do one for £37. Of course, Northern Monk also have their various patron society options, and North have also just introduced one, which is £40 a month, which is looks very good actually. It's really appealing, that one.
You've got your friends Vault City as well. They do their boxes too, don't they?
There's plenty of boxes at Vault City, usually about £60 for 12 of their bottles. Yeah, there's so much choice out there at the moment. If you know somebody who likes beer, you don't just have to go to the supermarket. There's plenty of people doing all sorts of special promotions. Another one of those is the London Beer Factory. They've got a Christmas gift box with 12 of their unique beers and a glass in a presentation box for £50, reduced from $66.95. So that's another good buy as well.
Yeah, definitely. Now the next one's a little bit. I'm trying to think what the Marmite equivalent to Brussels sprouts.
Ah, very festive.
One. Yes, Brussels sprouts might not be to everyone's taste, but Tiny Rebel have got some Christmas themed varieties of Stay Puft. It's gone through various iterations since it originally was released, and we're now in the region of having an eggnog flavoured Stay Puft and I believe a honey smoked ham Stay Puft as well. So, you know, they're doing all they can. I think the other one, or one of the other ones, is along the lines of After Eight. I think
there is an After Eight one knocking around yet.
So, I mean, it's like I say, it's not to everyone's taste, but it's good fun, and I would say it might be worth a bit of a punt.
Yeah, have a go. You never know, you might like it. Now, another thing you can do if you want to support your independent craft brewers at this time of the year, there's brewery vouchers and tour vouchers galore knocking around at the moment. And although you may not be able to actually visit the breweries, since most of them are in tier 2 or tier 3 at the moment, at least when we return to some sort of normal activity, you'll have a voucher in the bag there to go and have a look round. So your likes of Dig Brew, Brew York. I'm not sure if Cloudwater are still doing them. I know they were, but there's lots of places out there where you can get tour of the brewery and vouchers to spend in the tap rooms as well. Really good idea, and it just gives the breweries a little bit of income while they're not actually selling any goods, as it were, direct from their side.
Yeah, and if you want to save yourself some money at the same time, maybe just write your loved one a card saying that you'll take them to a tap room in the next year, in 2021, when things get back to normal.
I'm liking this.
And then everyone wins.
I'm liking this a lot. It sounds good. Now, this is an interesting one. There's a book out at the moment called Beer by Design by the food and drink guru Pete Brown. £15.99, 256 pages. It's just been released a few days ago, and it's sort of an exploration of beer branding through the ages. And there's all sorts of craft brewers featuring there: Cloudwater, Brew by Numbers, and it just sort of takes you through the process of how the design of craft brewery imagery has evolved over the years. So I'm sort of thinking I might quite fancy that book, although I did notice it was sold out on Amazon. So go and get it somewhere independent if you can.
Yeah, and just carrying on with the sort of idea of imagery, I mean, all the breweries, a lot of them have caught on to the idea that there's a good way of getting your brand out there, and that's through merch. And plenty of the brewers have T-shirts or sweaters. Have a little look around on the various brewers' shops and see what merch they've got, even if it's bottle openers and things like that. If you can think of it, a brewer somewhere has put their name on it now for you to own it. And
the internet's your friend here. It's just full of links and places to go and find this stuff. And if you want to go down the festive route as well, there's plenty of barrel-aged releases out there. We had one earlier on Brew to Me, and Wonder Beyond have just released 2 barrel-aged bottles, one called Louis Empire and one called Leaped for $15.95 and $14.95. And yes, I did succumb. I did get them, as you might have guessed, but I'm looking forward to those. And also there's Siren have released their Caribbean Chocolate Cake 2020 releases, Dave.
Just with the barrel-aged stuff, there's no end of it around at this time of year. So if you are now thinking that, fingers crossed, everyone up in or down in London for Downing Street might relax things at Christmas, so we might be all able to get together a little bit. What better way to do so than to get yourself a nice big 750ml bottle of something barrel aged to share with friends and family? So, have it again, as Dave says, the internet's your friend. Have a scout around. There's lots of breweries doing barrel aged sorts of wares at this time of year. Find a bottle of something nice, and then hopefully you can share it with your loved ones.
Daftaboutcraft.
It's Hype Or Tripe. This is where we grab hold of one of these big name beers from the last few weeks, and we give it a good thorough road test, and we see if it lives up to its top billing or not. And this month we're going for
Wild Beer's Trillionaire. Now, Wild Beer haven't actually featured on an episode yet. They've been about a good long time now, and you can get them in Waitrose. So they've sort of made that leap from being a craft brewery and going into a sort of mass appeal of the supermarkets. So they do straddle both. But the thing that always makes Wild Beer stand out is probably the clues within the name. They do a lot of very different stuff, don't they?
this one, Trillionaire. It's obviously, as you can imagine from the name, a step forward from the Millionaire.
But they actually say on the can that Trillionaire is inspired by traditional German Christmas treats. So we've got some specialty malts, blend of spices, chocolate and apricot.
Now,
Is what makes this a very drinkable yet rich stout.
I get straight away those German biscuits that you get at Christmas. That's the biscuit there. Dave's just got one. That's the very one. That head really reminded me of the Christmas pudding mix, and I really hope this lives up to it. Let's see. It poured really thick into the glass. Can't see through it. Very dark. The head's gone pretty quickly. Wow, that does taste like one of those biscuits as well, doesn't it?
It's absolutely superb. I was just waiting for you to catch up and have your first gulp of it. Mine's been sat for a good few hours to get up to room temperature, and it is so good for it. I'd recommend, I think...
You wouldn't want that cold out of the fridge, would you?
No, I can guess what it'd be like out of the fridge, and you'd get hints of it, but it'd be too cold to really come through. But
I think it would blunt those flavours.
Oh.
Did you get a little bit of licorice there as well, or not? Or is that just me?
It's on the back end, which isn't a flavour I actually love, but because the spicy winter sort of tones are there at the start, I don't mind it as much.
So I'm getting the chocolate and the spices. Do you get the apricot as well?
I find apricot a hard taste to get through on a beer, so I wasn't really expecting to get it very much.
I love an apricot sour, but I think the chocolate and the spices, the mask, if there is apricot in there, I'll get them, and there is, but I'm not getting it. I think it's overwhelmed a bit by the other flavours. And some of these beers can really hide their alcohol, but I've got to say that
this tastes like it, doesn't it?
This is not hiding the 10.3, is it? That is in there. It's right in your face. No doubt about that.
But to go back to a previous discussion we've had with this is a 330, which is what Wild Beer generally operate in. You can get some of their big beers. There's the sort of wild, the Brett stuff we talked about earlier, and they're in 750s.
Yeah,
this is 330, and that's perfect.
This is
I don't need any more.
Yeah, I wouldn't want a 440 of that can to myself. I'd have to share that.
Oh, that's so nice. That's really festive. It's a shame I'm not having this in a couple of weeks' time, because I think...
Well, you get yourself another one.
I could get myself another one. That's very true. Because it's not very expensive, actually, is it? Is it about £6.50 on Wild's site? But you can get it available for less at other retailers.
Yeah, I think Wild's own website, it was sold out. It sold out very quickly on there at £6.50, and you couldn't get it. And then they've got it back in stock again now, £6.50. but it is available with a lot of other places for a little bit less. But I think if you sign up with Wild Beer, when you put your first order in, you get 10% off. So that does take it down below £6 anyway. So that's a pretty good deal. And I mean, there's no doubt this is a quality beer that you want to be drinking at this time of year. You wouldn't want to sit on the patio on a hot summer night and down this one, but at this time of year, when you're in front of the fire and it's cold and all the rest of it, this is good.
That's it. This is an expert piece of placement in terms of the season. If there's ever a night when you want to get the fire roaring, if you can, or you just want to wrap yourself up warm and have something to warm you up, this is the beer to do it. This is a beltingly good beer. Really like this.
I mean, me and Dave, we're real beer tickers. It's rare that you'll find us drink the same beer twice, and if we do, it's usually by accident because we forgot we had it the first time. But I can see that I would have this again in the build up to Christmas.
If I could get hold of another one of these, or it was gifted to me or something, I'd be delighted. I'd want to have it in December or January. I just really enjoy it. But yeah, if you can get one of these, do so. And if you have got one of these, lucky you, make sure you have it sooner rather than later.
And there you go, quick as you like, in a flash. That is just about it from Daftaboutcraft, episode number 6.
Yeah, it's been a great episode. I feel like we've had some really strong beers this month, which I think reflects really well on the scene as a whole. There's no shortage of good beers around. I think we've just had a handful, but it's really nice to just have a few great ones in quick succession.
And we ended on a real high there with Trillionaire from Wild Beer. That was the icing on the cake, I think, wasn't it? Really excellent.
Yeah, that's getting better the longer we're drinking that. That's a really good beer.
We've both still got a bit left, and every mouthful is being enjoyed, isn't it? Excellent. Now, we've got lots coming up for you in 2021 as well, and we should just announce that we're planning to go not monthly during 2021, but switch things up a bit and bring you a new episode every 3 weeks. We kind of feel that that's what it needs. There's plenty of podcasts out there who are weekly and every 2 weeks, and we've been monthly, and we just feel as though there's a bit of a gap in the market to make our efforts available to you every 3 weeks rather than every month.
Yeah, everything's moving so quickly still, despite the various spanners that have been thrown in the works this year within craft beer, but it's still moving on really quickly as a sector and as an industry, and we sort of want to keep up with that. And also we feel that there's enough people out there, and we're really grateful to you for downloading and listening as you do each month, that want to hear us a bit more frequently. It's some feedback we've had from people that they love it, but they just want to hear a bit more of us, which, you know, surprised and delighted us. So we're happy to deliver.
So we're planning our first episode of 2021 will be on the first Monday of January. So that's January the 4th. And then 3 Mondays after that. What date was that, Dave?
We will then be in the 25th of January. So in January, you actually get 2 episodes worth.
2 lots for the price of one. How about that?
Which will make Dry-January all the harder.
Indeed. We should just give a bit of a thumbs up to some of our regular supporters at this stage. I've got to say a big hello and thank you to Maritz in Assen in the Netherlands, and many thanks for your lovely messages in the last month, and hope the next few weeks are going to go well for you with your big hitting stouts over there. And do keep in touch, and thanks for all your good wishes.
Yeah, and Mark, we've had further conversations with him, and he's been a pleasure to talk to and really interesting to boot. So thanks for that, Mark. We appreciate you getting in touch, and it's always a delight to have a chat to you. Please keep doing so. And also Dave Ingram as well, who is a frequent poster and friend of the show.
Certainly is. And if you want to get involved as well, Dave often contacts us on Instagram. So you can catch us on Instagram, on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're everywhere, in fact.
Yeah, just search for Daftaboutcraft and we should well come up.
So before we end, there's a little bit of news to tell you as well. Glasshouse Brewery here in the West Midlands near to me. We're really happy to announce that on November the 27th they went live with their website for national delivery. So their beers aren't just exclusively for people who live near to me. Wherever you live in the country, you can now get hold of their beers through their website, which is fantastic news. And I know one Dave in Suffolk will be ordering some pretty soon, I'd have thought.
Yeah, exactly. As someone who doesn't live near there but did get to go to the tap room and sample them a couple of months ago, I can't recommend them high enough. I think if you want to get on the ground floor here and find a brewery that's going to be, all of a sudden everyone's going to be talking about them in a couple of months' time, Glasshouse could well be the ones. The beers I had were second to none. We're talking your pales and all the juice and all the haze that you want. So if you're a Pomona or a Daya fan, anything of that ilk, Glasshouse have definitely got you covered, and it is very, very good.
And if you're not in the West Midlands, like I happen to be, probably have never tasted Glasshouse, believe me, it's worth it. Get on the website, get some in for Christmas, and I'm sure you won't regret it. And one other little bit of news while we think about it, the London Beer Factory, they're opening a brand new tap room with 28 lines of craft. That is tempting, isn't it? That makes me want to get down there, if only we weren't in tier 3. But that's opening their brand new tap room on December the 4th. So if you find yourself in the area and you can get there, why don't you give them a try? So I think that is just about all from Daftaboutcraft, episode number 6. It's been an absolute joy to be with you for the last 6 months. We've enjoyed every minute. Hopefully you've enjoyed it too. And hopefully you'll join us again in 2021 for lots more episodes and lots more Daftaboutcraft.
Have a very happy Christmas and also a very happy New Year. And come 2021, hopefully things will return to some sort of normality. We will all be able to get together. Craft beer will go from strength to strength, and it will be a year to remember.
Happy Christmas, everyone, and we'll see you in 2021.
Bye.